You've found just stories, simple, heartfelt moments from real lives, stories that remind us how connected we all are through love, loss, and hope. Get cozy. The stories are about to begin. Sarah was hurrying to work. This day was set aside for a mandatory medical examination. She had to see several specialists before she could start her duties. The main thing was to finish within the allotted time, otherwise, she would have to stay late. Sarah worked as a nurse at the hospital and loved her job. However, the constant shift changes caused her dissatisfaction. She often grumbled when she had to come in for unscheduled shifts. In response, she was usually countered, "Well, what are you grumbling about? You're the only one of us without children, and the extra money won't hurt. And all of us have children, husbands." "I have a husband too," Sarah insisted. However, her husband Robert wasn't bothered by his wife's evening and night shifts at all. "Sarah, don't worry about me. Am I not capable of warming up my own dinner? Or do I need a nanny to put me to bed? I'm not a child anymore, you know." And so it happened that night, and 24-hour shifts fell to Sarah more often than to anyone else. That day, the young woman managed to see almost all the doctors before her shift began. Only the gynecologist remained. Sarah was already tidying herself up, preparing to leave the office, when she heard the doctor's voice. "Development is proceeding normally. I don't think there's cause for concern. I only advise you not to delay registering for prenatal care. Time has already been lost. You are not that young to risk it." Sarah froze. She had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. "What do you mean? What development? Development of what? Do I have some problems? Am I sick? Why do I need to register for care?" Sarah asked anxiously, almost incoherently. The gynecologist smiled. "My dear, pregnancy is not a disease. And can it even be called a problem? You need to register for care so that a doctor can monitor you. You are already 35 years old. That's not young for a first birth. I will give you a certificate. Take it to your local doctor." "I'm pregnant?" Sarah whispered, her eyes wide. The doctor began to show impatience. "And you didn't know? All right, woman. I have a lot more work to do. I've told you everything. The rest is your concern. All questions should be directed to your doctor at your place of residence. Goodbye." Sarah automatically took the certificate, left the office, and shuffled down the corridor. Thoughts whirled in her head. She was pregnant? It couldn't be. They had given up hope long ago. Nothing had happened for so many years. And now this news had knocked her off her usual track. Yes, she had noticed that her medical uniform felt tighter, but she hadn't given it much thought, attributing it to an increased appetite. Just put on a little weight, she told herself. That was understandable. But why had she suddenly started eating so much? Could it be because of pregnancy? And also, she had completely forgotten about her period. When was the last time? She couldn't remember. Oh my God, she was pregnant. She needed to confirm this immediately. Sarah hurried to the nurse's station. Her friend Anna was already there. She was sitting on the sofa, engrossed in her phone. "Oh, Sally, you're back. What's wrong with you? You look awful. So pale. Did something happen?" Anna asked, looking up from the screen. Sarah shook her head negatively, but then immediately asked, "Anna, do you happen to have a pregnancy test?" Anna was known at the hospital for her frivolous relationships. She often started romances both outside and inside the clinic walls. Feelings sometimes overtook her at the most unexpected moments, and the girl didn't always bother with contraception. Therefore, she always had pregnancy tests at work. "Of course I do. You even ask," Anna replied briskly, rummaging in her locker. She pulled out a couple and handed them to Sarah. "You know how to use them, I hope." Anna winked. But Sarah was not in the mood for jokes. With a completely serious face, she took both tests, grabbed an empty specimen jar from the table, and headed to the restroom. A few minutes later, Sarah stood in the restroom, clutching 2 tests in her hands. Both clearly showed positive results. She shifted her gaze from one to the other. 2 lines, and another 2 lines. Bright, clear, even. There could be no doubt. She was indeed pregnant. It had happened right when she had finally let go of the situation and resigned herself to the thought of being childless. Sarah couldn't work that day. She wrote a leave request, citing sudden indisposition. She needed to go home urgently to share this amazing news with her husband. On the bus, Sarah thought impatiently. Why was it crawling so slowly? It seemed the whole world was conspiring against her. Finally, she reached home. Entering the apartment, she took out the test. With a smile on her face, she entered the living room, clutching the striped test in her hand, and froze. A young woman was sitting on their new sofa, covered with a blanket, and Robert was hastily pulling on his trousers. His face was crimson, angry, and flustered. He clearly hadn't expected his wife to catch him in such a delicate situation. "What's going on?" Sarah exhaled barely audibly. "Nothing terrible is going on," Robert replied dully. The girl just blinked silently. She had turned pale with fear. Who knew what her lover's wife might get into her head? What if she decided to drag her by the hair? Sarah continued to clutch the pregnancy test in her hand. She suddenly realized that her fate had just taken a sharp turn. Sarah felt the ground give way beneath her. Her breath caught, and nausea rose. Robert took her by the arm and led her to the kitchen. Turning around, he quietly said to his companion, "Get dressed quickly." Sarah automatically went into the kitchen and stopped, staring at the bottle of wine and 2 glasses on the table. "Why are you back so early?" her husband asked, displeased. Sarah gave him a bewildered look. "I felt unwell, I was nauseous, and I took the day off," she stammered. Robert grunted and ruffled his hair. "You could have called and warned me you were coming home." Sarah frowned. "I have to call and warn you that I'm returning to my own home? Why? So you can hurry your mistress out? Are you in your right mind? What's going on, Robert? What's wrong? Have you stopped loving me?" Robert avoided her gaze. "No, I just relaxed a bit. And don't you dare raise your voice at me. Don't make a scene." Robert peeked into the hallway. The front door slammed. The mistress was gone. "Robert, not make a scene in front of whom? In front of your mistress? I can scream as much as I want. You have no right to shut me up." Robert flushed. "You know, I think I'll leave for now. I'll come back when you've calmed down. You're having a hysterical fit over nothing. So what if I've strayed a couple of times? So what? I'm not leaving you. I live with you. That means everything suits me, and there's nothing to discuss. That's it. I'm leaving. We'll talk later when you can take things calmly. And while I'm gone, think about your behavior. Maybe you'll realize what you're doing wrong, since I had to get a mistress. And she, by the way, doesn't throw tantrums about me having a wife, although she could. She just enjoys herself. I advise you to reflect on that." And Robert left. A couple of minutes later, the front door slammed again. Sarah stood in the kitchen, not moving. She clenched her fists. She felt something digging into her palm. It was the pregnancy test. It was still clenched in her hand. And Robert hadn't even asked what it was. He hadn't even noticed it. Sarah cried. Half an hour later, Sarah decided she no longer wanted to live with her husband. He had betrayed her, and she was, obviously, not as needed by him as she had thought. Sarah couldn't stay home any longer and went to the hospital. Anna was there. Perhaps she could comfort her in some way. Anna immediately saw from Sarah's appearance that something was wrong. "Sarah, why are you back? You were feeling unwell. What happened?" Anna asked. Sarah couldn't bear it and burst into tears again. She told her friend everything. Anna listened carefully, then sighed heavily. "Well, friend, you've had quite a day. To get the most wonderful and the most terrible news at the same time is no joke. I see your husband doesn't particularly want a child. Maybe you'll have an abortion." Sarah shook her head negatively. "What are you saying? No, absolutely not. I'm not going to do that. I've dreamed of a child so much, and I won't give him up. This is my miracle. I'll file for divorce. I've already decided. I just need to move out from Robert's place. Move to my own apartment. I don't know how to do it. If I go back home, he'll either try to persuade me or argue. I won't be able to stand his pressure in this state. He might convince me to stay, and I don't want that. I can't live with him after everything he's done. And Sarah covered her face with her hands, crying again. Anna thought, biting her lips and closing her eyes. Then she perked up. Listen, let me help you. Or rather, not me, but Davy. It's simple. Davy was Anna's brother. A good guy, cheerful, sociable. He had divorced several years ago when his wife cheated on him, and David found out. When Sarah met him, David was just after his divorce. She saw him often. He constantly visited his sister, and Sarah enjoyed talking with him. He was so smart, so considerate. One day, Anna told her, Listen, I think Davy is smitten with you. He comes to the hospital just like that so often, as if he's looking for you. Don't make things up, Anna. That's silly. I'm married. He doesn't look at me. You're just imagining things, Sarah replied. Now Sarah thought that David was the only one who could help her. Tomorrow her husband would be at work from morning till evening. Sarah and Anna had the day off. Maybe this was a great idea. They would have time to pack and move things to Sarah's apartment. How good it was that she hadn't rented it out after the last tenants. How well everything was falling into place. Sarah agreed. Anna called her brother, and they arranged everything. Sarah went to stay at Anna's place when their shift ended. Her husband called her all evening and night, but Sarah didn't answer. The next day, David was at his sister's place by 7 in the morning. Are you crazy? Why are you here so early? I haven't even gotten up yet. But Sarah was already awake. While Anna went back to bed for another half hour, Sarah made David breakfast and fed him. She didn't tell David anything about her family problems, but judging by his face, he really wanted to know the details. However, he didn't ask questions. He just told her, Sal, you can always count on me. I'm very sorry that you are unhappy and that your husband is a scoundrel. I would move mountains for a woman like you, and I would do everything to make her the happiest woman in the world. I would never trade you for anyone else. Sarah just nodded, but her heart felt warm and peaceful from these sincere words. Sarah noticed that when she accidentally touched his hand while passing him a plate of pancakes, his fingers trembled. Could Anna have been telling the truth? And did David really like Sarah? No, what nonsense. They moved Sarah's things to her apartment, and Sarah immediately felt better. Anna was in a hurry. She had a date with another suitor, and she left, leaving David and Sarah alone. You can go too. I can manage on my own. Thank you very much, Sarah said. But David just rolled up his sleeves and replied, I'm not leaving until we finish everything. You shouldn't lift heavy things. I'll help you. So Anna did tell David about the pregnancy after all. Well, everyone would find out about it sooner or later anyway. They finished quickly together. David helped her a lot. He carefully gave her his hand when she stepped onto or down from a chair. He moved all the furniture so Sarah could wash the floors. He fixed the toilet and washed the windows where Sarah couldn't reach. Sarah looked at him and thought, why wasn't Robert like this? He never helped his wife like this complete stranger helped her. When they finished, Sarah said, Thank you, Davy. You are a very good person. Your future chosen one will be lucky. I wish I had a husband exactly like that. David smiled. So what's stopping you? I personally don't mind. File for divorce quickly, and I'll propose to you. Will you marry me, Mary? Sarah was speechless. What kind of joke was this? She didn't know what to say and decided to match his tone. David, I am very flattered. However, this is impossible. I'm pregnant with another man's child. What man would want to raise someone else's child? And I'm not going to get rid of him. So, unfortunately, I can't. David replied seriously, But I'm not just any man, Sarah. I will treat your child as my own. Don't compare me to others. I've admired you for so long, and now that you are separating from your husband, nothing will stop me from winning you over. You won't get rid of me that easily now. I'll go, but I'll come back tomorrow. You need to fix the wardrobe. I'll come back with my tools." And he left. And Sarah sat in the kitchen for a long time, not believing her ears. Sarah stepped out onto the building steps, squinting in the bright sunlight. In her hands was a huge bouquet of flowers. Her husband stood beside her. Davy held a baby in his arms and beamed, and Sarah smiled. Anna ran up to them with her companion, who was soon to become her husband. Finally, Anna had found her happiness too. Anna exclaimed enthusiastically, looking at Sarah and her son, "Oh, what a darling! By God, he's so handsome!" Sarah didn't say anything. She just savored the moment. Who would have thought that by divorcing Robert she would find true happiness? She married Anna's brother. He doted on Sarah, took the utmost care of her, and he accepted the child as his own. "This is our son, Sarah darling. This is my son. I won't give either of you up for anyone. Remember that," he told her, gently stroking her belly in the last month of pregnancy. Sarah was happy. She didn't think about her ex-husband, nor did he think about her. His fate didn't interest her. Only one thing was important: her new family, her beloved, precious husband Davy, and their little son Leo. True love exists in this world. Now Sarah knew this for sure.